Disgaea 6 does something that I haven't experienced in a while, and that's to genuinely make me laugh out loud. It combines a slick narrative with some brilliant voice acting, as well as the usual crazy shenanigans you'd expect from a Nipponichi title. It's not all perfect, and we'll go over some issues with the Switch version in particular, but I think there's enough here to entice even the most ardent SRPG detractors. My name's Mark Walker, thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll enjoy the review, and a thanks to NIS for the review copy. But is this old formula beginning to decay, or is it actually pretty good? Let's find out.
9999999.
The story follows a zombie named Zed, who seems to have got the bit between his teeth and wants to take down the god of all destruction. As the narrative progresses, you find out exactly why, but he's not alone in this stoic task, joined as he is by his zombified dog.
Come on, Zed. Let the Prinny be your vassal.
The dialogue between these two characters alone is standout, and as someone who is a particular fan of comedy in general, I can say that the writing is effective enough to be both ridiculous and ridiculously entertaining at the same time. Not something easily achieved, particularly with a number of games that have come across from Japanese releases whereby something in the humour department seems lost in translation. Not the case with Disgaea 6. Every time a new character is introduced, you can usually guarantee that you're going to be chuckling away.
How horribly cruel!
As a zombie, Zed starts out lowly and pathetic, and after hundreds of attempts of trying to beat the god of all destruction and repeatedly failing, he's gone from absolutely pathetic to only mildly poor, and that's where you step in, taking over control. And the gameplay picks up essentially where he last dies. This time around though, things are going to be different because you're at the helm. If you're at all familiar with the Disgaea series, then you'll know that it mixes up a combination of grid-based SRPG gameplay and a hub area. But don't be fooled, there are many new mechanics at play here which make it a potentially more interesting experience. First up, we've got the combat, and NIS have opted for a fully 3D model. This allows you to rotate on one of 8 different axes. Yes, 8. Unfortunately, they haven't allowed you to fully control the camera in 360 degrees, which in my opinion is a mistake. That being said, there's more control over that than there ever has been, allowing you to hold the Y button and tweak to look round corners and spot anything you may have missed. Each confrontation begins with your first few moves taking place from this area, with a few new and some returning mechanics. You can pick up players and throw them, or lift boxes to stack and create staircases, and positioning your fighters in direct proximity to each other will increase the damage done when they finally attack. By doing so, you'll also build up a combo multiplier. It all amounts to increased damage, but adds a nice tactical element to the placement of your troops. Once you've decided on your initial moves, you can execute them, so any attacks will be performed, and you can also put them into defensive formations. There are a couple of things from the controls perspective I wasn't overly sold on, like pressing the LZ trigger to cycle between the available players, but when one was selected and a move chosen, it would then default back to the start area when you press LZ. It sounds like a very minor thing, but it's something you'll do so often, it was a bit of a pain. Now you can manually select each of your characters, but I did also find that because of the restrictive nature of some of those camera angles, there were times when I found it difficult to select who I wanted. It's something that would have been so easily fixed by allowing you to cycle back and forward between your team using the ZL and ZR, but the ZR will cycle through the enemies. It has to be said that combat is very enjoyable still, and I believe they've done enough to make it approachable for new players, but also introduce some new mechanics for existing players that will make your life so much easier. Veterans will pay attention to the auto battle system very quickly, but what they may not realize is that Disgaea 6 allows you to program the logic of your individual troops. It can be incredibly effective at cutting down the amount of time you'll have to grind later on in the game. Even just the speed at which you can toggle between auto and not means that you can leave the computer to do some of the more mundane tasks like getting idle players to guard, which again might not seem like a big deal, but in a game where you'll repeat many fights, it just cuts down on some of the monotony that can, I think it has to be said, creep into most RPGs, not just SRPGs. The hub area has some great additions. Not only can you do the usual of buying weapons and gear, choosing different quests, which in turn will unlock different classes for use in the rest of the game. But it's here that you can also access the cheats bar. Yeah, the cheats bar. This is a world filled with demons and the undead, so it's the perfect thing to have and allows you to work towards tweaking the abilities and different outcomes and rules of the game. And on the note of rules, there's an area where you will petition for changes to the overarching rule set. It may sound ludicrous, and well, I guess it is in a way, but it actually works. It works really well. With that core drive of killing the god of all destruction, you're introduced early on to the concept that, well, you may well die and fail, but much like a roguelite title, there's a perpetual experience system, so that even if you return to 0 level, of which there are, I think it's 999,900, I don't know, it's a lot, you still maintain an ever-growing power. The whole point is that Zed's getting stronger and stronger, so that when you choose to face that final boss, one day you will succeed. Now, bar some minor control irritations, Disgaea 6 is the most I've enjoyed the series probably since maybe 4, and it's certainly head and shoulders above some of the other games in this genre, and much of it comes down to the writing, story and dialogue. Overall, I think it's standard Disgaea, very enjoyable SRPG gameplay that trips at times and feels a little fiddly. As you unlock the latter classes and delve a bit deeper into some of the side content, there's a lot to sink your teeth into though. I give gameplay 16 out of 20 and the controls 14 out of 20. Visually, the Nintendo Switch version of Disgaea 6 isn't great. On the one hand, you've got the beautifully hand-drawn characters for the cutscenes, but unfortunately these are starkly juxtaposed with some of the rougher 3D elements. As mentioned, it is the first fully 3D game in the series, but they don't make the most of this when it comes to camera angles. Now, you do have a few options for performance modes, which is always nice to see. You've got the quality mode, which increases the overall resolution to be near native, but it keeps the frame rate at 20 frames per second. Strangely, there are times when it will creep up to 30, and whenever you do combat moves, it will actually be 60 FPS locked out. It might sound very odd, but you don't really need a very high frame rate in these turn-based battle segments, and the fact that when you execute your moves they go to 60, it was okay to play in this mode. Then there's the balance mode, which essentially is a mix. You have a slightly lower resolution, but a 30 FPS for most of the time, and then 60 for those animations. That was the one that I stuck with for the vast majority of my time. But then you have performance mode, which is 60 FPS, but you may as well go grab a tub of Vaseline and smear it in each eye. The stages themselves actually look quite nice, and I do like the art style. I personally don't see what's holding the Nintendo Switch back from hitting 30 in quality mode in that hub area. There's no effects and nothing particularly taxing going on, it's just a matter of a bit more programming, methinks. In handheld, the game is surprisingly okay. Text size isn't the largest, but it's not ridiculously small to the point where I couldn't see it. Now that being said, I didn't play this one on my Switch Lite, I played this on my OG Switch. Disgaea 6 has an excellent soundtrack, but an even better voice-acted cast.
Go ahead and run if you want. But just so you know, Zed hasn't given up yet.
These are just flesh wounds. They don't hurt a bit.
The main character, Zed, is a total pain in the arse, but it's his dog that steals the show. There's a growing muted affection between them that travels from outright disdain to something that could resemble friendship. It's captured perfectly, and while the overall story itself isn't possibly the most original, the delivery of the characters elevates it above what it could have been. Visuals and performance score 14 out of 20, and the audio scores 19 out of 20. As far as value goes, the game's going to set you back £53.99 or your regional equivalent. It can be had physically, but there's no escaping that this is a premium price, but I have a feeling that fans of the series are going to still enjoy it immensely. You're looking at around about 30 to 40 hours to do everything, and if you're downloading a 6GB download, it can be had physically, so there's a good chance you'll be able to find it a little cheaper a few months down the line, and I'd say for fans of the series it will be a pickup, but for others potentially a wait for a sale. I give value 15 out of 20. For me, Disgaea 6 is more than the sum of its parts, and while not perfect, it does enough new while still leaving some potential for the future. It scores a SwitchUp score of 78%. Let us know in the comments if you like this one, if you like the look of it, and if you're keen to play as Zed the Zombie. A big thanks to all of you who watch the channel, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!